Welcome back to the Triple Threat Podcast. It's been a while, but we are going to try and do an episode every day this month. Get back in the swing of things, get a little routine going, and straight off the bat, we got a pretty heavy topic to talk about today. B-Flow, Brian Flores, ex-Dolphins and Patriots coach, has recently filed a class action lawsuit, or just a lawsuit against the NFL for a variety of claims. We'll get into them one by one, but I just want to get your initial thoughts on the whole situation involving him and his firing and his coaching search.
Yeah, definitely. Before we get into the heavier topics, I think as a head coach, what he's done to Miami has been pretty amazing, and I was really sad to see him go. I think that they had a really good future being built there. They're kind of peaking towards the end of the season with Tua being healthy, so definitely wish he could have stayed. I wish he could have been the guy to help rebuild a pretty lackluster Dolphins team for the past couple of years, but he did get fired, and more specifically, he filed a lawsuit against Miami, the New York Giants, and the Denver Broncos, who the latter two teams were both looking at him for a potential job. And it seems that for the Giants, at least, there were some screenshots of text messages where Bill Belichick actually informed Flores that the Giants had chosen Bill's offensive coordinator, Brian Daboll, before Flores met with Giants general manager. So I found that to be a little bit interesting. And I think in a league where, in terms of ownership and in terms of coaching, it's definitely predominantly white. It doesn't seem to leave too good of an impression. And it really seems that for at least in our generation, we've really only had one kind of consistent black coach. I might be wrong, but Mike Tomlin.
So the NFL introduced in 2003 the Rooney Rule, which implied that for every major front office or coaching hiring, a team had to interview at least one person of color for their candidate. And the fact that I don't think it surprises anyone in the NFL to know that people are just having the interview to get it over with and try to bypass the rule. Like having Brian Flores sit down for an interview after who your coach is going to be, not doing the proper due diligence, not giving Brian Flores the proper opportunity to appeal himself to that. I think Brian Flores should be lucky because he does not deserve the Giants. But it just speaks to a wider thing about the NFL and their whole thought process and the whole discrimination that goes on in the NFL. And I think Brian Flores, there's no shot he wins this, but what he can bring with this lawsuit is more attention to what's going on in the NFL. And I think it's really a commendable goal because he could be sacrificing his career with this lawsuit, just like Colin Kaepernick did. Colin Kaepernick probably deserved a job in the first 2 years after his exile from the NFL. And I just hope Brian Flores doesn't go down the same path because, in my opinion, he's a top 10 coach in the NFL right now.
Yeah, I think as a coach, we've seen what he can do, especially on the defensive side of the ball. But I think more importantly, it kind of exposes this whole rule that they have. It's not really a rule to actually encourage hiring minority coaches. It's just more of a quota that's set in place. All right, here are the guys that we want. Let's find one minority coach, and we'll just throw him in just to get this whole process complete, instead of really accomplishing what the NFL supposedly wanted to do with actually giving more opportunities to very talented minority coaches, such as guys like Brian Flores, Mike Tomlin in the past.
Jim Caldwell. That criminal. What criminal what the Lions did to him.
Oh, yeah. Robert Saleh, who is a Muslim as well. So a lot of really talented coaches there. And I hope NFL teams view this less as a quota and more as, okay, there's a very traditional path of coaches in terms of race and skin color. Let's see what this more alternate path can bring with minority coaches. And let's just kind of integrate it more into one system so it's not here are all the coaches that we want to hire. here's a minority coach that we have to do to check a box.
And what he said in the interviews, the Broncos, Elway was what, disheveled, clearly drinking the last night, an hour late. They didn't even bother to care about the interview. It was like, all right,
Oh yeah,
we got to get the Rooney Rule out of the way. Here's Brian Flores. We're not going to hire him, but we got to talk to him. They didn't even care. They didn't even bother. And I mean, I feel like if you know the NFL, this was probably presumed, but I thought what the most revealing thing in the lawsuit was with the Dolphins and how the owner was incentivizing Flores to throw games with $100,000 per loss in order to get Joe Burrow in the NFL draft. Now that is criminal. Incentivizing a coach to throw games, and apparently was irate when Flores won late in the season and they fell down to the fifth overall pick.
the pick, yeah.
I mean, irate. I mean, and then forcing him to have, or incentivizing him to have a meeting with a prominent NFL quarterback, which would have been tampering. All this makes me believe that Brian Flores is an amazing coach. He stands up for what he believes in. He doesn't bow down to anyone. And his owner told him to throw games, and he just didn't. He won 5 games that year with a terrible roster, then proceeded to go have back-to-back double-digit win seasons. In the past 2 years, it's like the 6th highest winning percentage of any coach. The Dolphins have made the only back-to-back winning season the Dolphins have had was 2002, 2003. And Brian Flores is out the door after having back-to-back winning seasons.
Yeah, and it also kind of speaks on NFL ownership as well. I think there's a lot really behind the scenes in terms of ownership that we don't really know. Things like trying to throw games to get Joe Burrow, or hiring, firing people based on things like race and ethnicity, or just not proceeding to actually care about an interview. Just you want to just do it so it fits some kind of quota. So really kind of disgraceful on not only the NFL, but also ownership as a whole. And when you look at it, ownership is there's a very common stereotype for NFL owners, and the more old money, generational Caucasian wealth. And hopefully some barriers can be broken there.
Let's break this down, look into the future. Come to the Saints. We want your B-Flow. Apparently he had dinner last night, had his interview today, apparently. Perfect fit with the Saints. He would be amazing. Go from one coach hated by the NFL to another coach hated by the NFL. Sounds good to me. I would love it. He would fit great with the locker room. The guys would love it. He's a leader of men. Stands by his values. You could keep Pete Carmichael as the OC, keep the culture the same. Maybe keep Dennis Allen if he doesn't go to anywhere. Because the Bears are the only thing talking to him, and they hired Matt Eberflus. Tell me how Matt Eberflus is a more qualified candidate than a
bona fide winner.
Someone who's been a head coach and won, only 40 years old, had actual schemes as a defense instead of being a bland vanilla like the Colts were. I don't know, off topic. Let's just see how this goes in the future. We wish Brian Flores the best. I love Brian Flores. I was thinking about Brian Flores as the Saints coach before we even had Sean Payton leaving. That's how much I love B-Flow. Love B-Flow.
Definitely. And it's kind of hearing about Brian Flores' story. This is just a little bit of a tangent. Seeing how far he's come from like a very it's kind of an American dream kind of story. Worked hard in football, came from an immigrant family in a poor family in New York. And it's kind of sad that his favorite team, his hometown team, the Giants of all teams, was involved in the scandal. So definitely praying for the best for Flores and hoping that shedding light on the NFL and ownership can really bring about some kind of change, not just across the NFL, but across other professional sports leagues.